Hi everybody, thanks for taking time to watch this webinar today. And before I introduce myself, before I go through the topic, I just want to say thanks. And the reason I want to say thanks is because in any startup journey, life is tough. And you might have started creating your own product, you might have seen a gap in the market and you thought, I can do this. And then weeks, months later, you realize that startup journey is not about building a product. It's not about just working on writing code. It's about selling, it's about marketing, it's about lead generation, it's about investment, it's about all the skill sets that probably you've avoided all your life because you wanted to get away from it, are now the things that you have to do as a full-time job. So what I want to do today is, the topic of this talk is called A Startup's Guide to LinkedIn. However, it's not about LinkedIn as such. It's about helping you to build connections, build relationships, and most importantly, improve how you do sales. So everything I'm showing you today is, yes, it's about LinkedIn, but try and think about it as like a broader topic of how do you get better at speaking to a human being? How do you get better at speaking to a stranger? How do you build confidence and make other people feel special? And what tools do you use to actually build a relationship to introduce yourself? So to get started, I want to quickly introduce myself. And the reason why I think it's so important to frame who I am is the same way you as a business needs to frame your product. If you try and sell to somebody straight away, if you try and educate somebody straight away without their mindset being the right way, they're not going to listen. So the most important thing I try and do with any talk is try and get your perceived value of me in the right way. And what I mean by this is I've only ever worked with startups. So my whole career has been from the age of, 15, 16, I was assigned to be a professional footballer. And from the age of 16 to 23, I had an amazing career playing professional football, traveling the world, and living a great life. But I was sort of cursed with having a brain. And so the problem with this was trying to combine football and trying to be ambitious as a sports person, but also having an academic background of trying and learn and progress all the time was difficult. And so what I ended up doing is finishing football and going into starting my own business. And from there, that was my startup journey. I've never worked for another company, I've consulted, but I've only ever run startups or worked with startups. So my expertise is trying to help you find those perfect ways, those new creative ways, those new ideas to scale your business. And because I was working with so many startups, it was a natural default that I had to become an expert at what's the quickest ways to make sales. So a lot of times people will say, I've been working so hard this week, I've been killing myself, I've been going for it. I'm not really impressed by that. I'd be much more impressed if someone said, I'm working smart. I found a way to hack something that it takes me an hour that it would be a week's worth of work. And today, this is what I'm trying to show you. A few hacks to save you time, give you some practical advice, and give you some advice on how to do this. The other thing is just a bit more about my background. So what I'm really proud about is so many investors, so many people say that the startup failure rate is enormous. I don't know the facts, but 90%, 95%, 98%, whatever it is, of startups fail. I've never worked with a startup directly that not only has never failed, that has never gone on to grow and do great things. So I would say about the 50 startups I've worked with and consulted, so this is not just in a webinar or talk, but really got involved with, have all gone on to scale, done really great things. Some have been acquired. I think the most recent one is raised, I think it was 50 million. So obviously that's not because of me, but a tiny part of this, when they were first on the startup journey trying to find their way, I helped them implement the ideas that they still use today. So I'm really proud of my background, I'm really proud of the teams I've helped, and I'm really proud of how I work with people. But I get energy from helping you. I get energy from teaching you what I know, fast tracking, and letting you work on what you really need to do. And the reason why I think it's so important for you on this session here is to just copy these ideas, is because with any startup growth, it's about the variables. And so many people will say to me, I've tried LinkedIn, it's not for me. Nobody replied, I didn't get any results. I'm just going to try emailing or TikTok, or I'm just going to pay for ads that gets results. And the problem you'll find is that if you're paying for ads, you're just burning through money. Now, any startups who can afford to burn through money, I would love to meet, because they can burn through money with me, but nobody has money to burn through. So as an early stage startup, you need to find a way that's highly efficient, highly effective, and low cost. And this is what LinkedIn will help you with. The other thing is, if you think about LinkedIn, it's not just for lead generation or business development. This is going to be for hiring, this is going to be for customer support, brand awareness, investment, PR, journalism, whatever it might be. This is a really important platform to help you get started. So I think the very first thing that I want to do, and what I want to focus on, is just trying get you in the right mindset to think, why are you here? And if you think about your own business, you might be a startup founder, a CEO, you might be head of sales, head of marketing, you might have just started a job, you might be still at university thinking about what to do. There's 4 really main topics that applies to everything you do. And this is not just for LinkedIn, this is just generally in life. And the first one I think you need to think about is what makes you unique. So many startups that I work with, they say, well, we're trying to push our product, but there's so many competitors, it's impossible to beat them. And I say things like, do you have customer support? Do you have live chat? Do you actually speak to your customer directly? Does a customer need to wait a day to speak to you, or maybe 10 minutes? So a lot of what makes you unique compared to other companies is just how much you care and how much you can support people. So as an early stage startup, your benefits are how small you are, not how big you want to be in the future. So try and find out what makes you completely unique in terms of what you do. Secondly, why are you relevant? So when I first introduced myself, I wanted to make it really clear to you, I'm relevant. You can trust me that what I'm saying is tried and tested. And what I mean by this is 10 years of testing means that I can fine-tune all of this in 1 hour of just do this. The same way for you. If you're starting a business in fashion, have you worked in fashion? Do you know the ropes? Have you worked in logistics? Have you worked in marketing? Or have you just had a quick idea and you're testing it out? There's no problem with that if you have a new idea and you think you can fix something. Particularly if you're a student, 18, 19, 20, you don't have a track record. And a lot of times, think of Mark Zuckerberg. He created Facebook when he was 18, 19. He didn't have track record or experience of marketplaces or Facebook or whatever. He just had an idea to fix. So you don't always have to have credibility and background. But I would hope every one of you that is launching a startup either has background, sort of relevant industry experience, or a hobby where you're passionate and fast-tracking your growth. And you need this in terms of when you're trying to do sales, if you don't have any case studies, examples, you are the case study. You can say, I've got 10 years of experience in this space, you can trust me. So that sort of idea. Final one is world-class. And what I mean by world-class is what do you do that is the best in the world, compares with anybody in your field. And a lot of people, when I say, what are you world-class at? They'll say, well, I'm a good coder. I'm quite good at sales. And I say, well, that's pretty competitive to be the best in the world, the best developer in the world, the best salesperson in the world. But can you do the 1% things that can cumulative get to where you need to be? And what I mean by this is, can you always get enough sleep? Can you always something like meditate? Can you brush your teeth well? Can you sleep well? Can you read enough? Can you take time to be patient with your staff? Can you take time to be patient with your family or your kids? Can you always follow up on emails after people speak? Think about this webinar, and I'm going to leave my email. You could follow up with me and say, thanks for that, Pat. I would love to get your advice. Can we have a chat? That sort of thing. World class is all the little things of how you live your life, or particularly in sales, all the little bits of admin that you do to make sure you make progress. And so when you put these factors together and you're unique in terms of your approach or your personality or your charm, and so many people that would say is geeky would actually say is absolutely introverted or exciting or unique. You need to find what is you and love you. Secondly, you need to find a way of why you're relevant. And then if you find all this together and you have the attention to detail to be world-class in everything that you do, then your customers will start to trust you. And if you don't have this mindset of all of this going into anything you do, and today it's LinkedIn, your messages will seem general, your profile will seem general, your approach just seems generic. And people don't want generic. If you think of the analogy of a restaurant, for example, I want you to be the Michelin star, 5-star restaurant, the best in the world, the high quality, not the all-you-can-eat buffet where it's just cheap and cheerful. So how do we make you the best is helping you realize you are the best. You can be the best in the world at the small things you do. You can be the most unique in the world of your approach and what you're building. And you can build people's trust for your confidence and enthusiasm to get going. So when we put all this together, we actually transition into LinkedIn. And the very first thing for LinkedIn is your digital persona. So if you look at me today, why am I wearing a suit and a t-shirt? Why am I not wearing a hoodie? Why am I not wearing a suit and a shirt? Why am I wearing trainers and not leather shoes? I try to make sure that my physical persona and my digital persona, and what I mean by this is my LinkedIn profile, are consistent. So if you go to meet somebody and it's the most important meeting of your life, you're going to think about what you wear. And if you don't, you're really naive, because people will judge you within seconds, half a second of seeing you. And if we go back a little bit, and by a little bit I mean to like caveman sort of times, millions of years ago, our brain is wired to do fight or flight. When you see a stranger there, our brain is wired to think, I can trust this person, friend, or this person's going to try and kill me, run. And so when you have your LinkedIn profile, I don't think people are looking to be friends or kill you. It's not so cutthroat, but they are instantly making a judgment if you like it or not. And LinkedIn is not a dating website. It's not a Tinder. It's not something like this. But it is a website where people judge you on trust and how they look. So your very first thing, if you look at this sort of list here, is your profile picture. And profile picture is something like this: shoulders, neck, head, that sort of thing. Try and just dress as you want to be perceived. So if you're a startup, feel free, wear a hoodie, wear a t-shirt, that sort of thing. The mistakes people do in a profile picture is they try and have a picture of them speaking or a picture of them at an event or something like that. And the profile picture needs to be like a passport picture, like a headshot, because this is what shows up when you send a message, when you pop up in the corner. Even when you send an email, this profile picture will show up. So try and make sure that if you're going to really optimize your profile and get this right, how you look is critically important. And if you just go onto LinkedIn and look at my network and see the people who are trying to connect with you, you'll instantly have an opinion of them just on how they look. Humans are that shallow that you'll make a business decision based on if someone looks good or not. It's ridiculous, but we're wired like this, so we might as well play the game. The other thing is, think about your background image. So if you think about your LinkedIn profile, you have your profile picture there, the background image, and try and optimize this in a way that people can get a feeling for you. So a feeling for what you're passionate about, what your business does, where you're based, something like that. But you wouldn't make your website and have the top half of the website with no color, with no picture, nothing. And that's the same like a LinkedIn background. So if you can get your LinkedIn profile correct, if you can get your background image correct, then the only thing I say on top of that is the LinkedIn tagline. And the tagline is not your job description, but it's more what you're interested in, your mission. So for example, myself, I'm the founder of my business. So I would say founder at to start with. And then I would say the business, founder at Prospect Labs. So the first formula is job title at company. If you're sales, please don't say sales at or business development at. Say things like head of partnerships or, I don't know, something like that. But try and say it's a bit less threatening, because if a salesperson is reaching out, they're trying to sell. And you don't ever want to be sold to sort of digitally. You want to learn and be educated and then decide to buy. So try and find a way that you can say head of partnerships, head of community, head of growth, but head of sales or sales is a bit difficult. If you have to, no problem. But job title at company. Then I always have a vertical line, and the next bit is critically important, the impact that you do. So not what you do. So my business is a lead generation agency. But that's not the impact. The impact is we help startups to scale from generating leads, sales, training, that sort of thing. So when you think of your business and you're connecting with people, the most important thing is they want to see, are you in their world? Is what you're talking about and what you're explaining what they're interested in? So try and think of your LinkedIn profile as job title at company, helping X to do X. So for me, founder at Prospect Labs, nice clean vertical line, helping startups to scale. And that's generally enough. They don't need to know if it's LinkedIn or email or training or whatever. But if I'm targeting a startup, they just get a feeling for this. The other bits are just bits of advice. So your LinkedIn URL, your about page, your company section, featured section, post content. We could speak about an hour just on your LinkedIn profile, but it's a bit dull. Like, you just want to do the basic things. And if you think about why you started a startup, one of the reasons is to be self-employed. And I'm now saying to you, now create your CV, create your LinkedIn profile. And you're thinking, well, I don't want to get a job. Why do I need to do this? And it's because your LinkedIn profile is the #1 place people are going to look to find out about you. So if you think about when you go to an event, the amount of times people will forget your company name. Every startup has an LY on the end, or an IO, or an IFI, or Shopify, and Tenderly, and all these IY, LY. It's very hard to remember your name, and particularly as very rarely people have .com, .co, .io, .org. So it's very hard to remember your website. But people will remember your name because it's very important, it's individual. And after events, after workshops, after training, even after sales calls, people will Google your name, or particularly before. And the first thing that will usually come up is your LinkedIn profile before anything else. So your first impressions need to be of trust, respect, humor if you want, industry experience, all the different words that you want to be described as. So if you've never done this before, write down on a piece of paper how you want to be perceived. As an exercise, I'll tell you mine. Trust. I want people to be able to open up and tell them what they need help with, which takes trust. I want respect. I want to be able to say to startup, do this, and they can just say yes, not I don't trust you know what you're doing. I want humor. I want people to know I'm pretty lighthearted. I enjoy what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, and I have a laugh. And the other one is I want industry experience. I want people to know we're a startup, Pat, you're the go-to guy. So with you, write down these words, and then speak to some of your team, speak to some of your friends. Don't speak to your mum, because your mum will just say you're wonderful. So don't speak to your mum, but speak to somebody who will give you really honest feedback and say, this is a few words of how I perceive you. And if they're really clashed, it means your personal brand is not quite there yet. But if you're starting to get the same sort of words, you know how people perceive you physically and how you want to be perceived digitally is the same. So I think to sum up on this very, very quickly, it's probably the most dull but the most important, your digital persona. Profile picture, background image, and tagline. If you get that right, everything else will be a lot better. Good. So when we think about LinkedIn, one of the difficult things is I'm training you today on LinkedIn. I don't work for LinkedIn. I'm not accredited by LinkedIn. I'm not an approved partner from LinkedIn. And the reason being is it doesn't exist. If you're thinking about training for SEO, you might have Google approved. For email, you might have HubSpot approved or Lemlist approved or things like this. But for LinkedIn, they don't have any approved trainers. And this is a huge con, but an enormous pro for startups. The reason it's a con is because there's so many startups there that are getting training by LinkedIn coaches that are just giving it a go. They haven't really invested their time, spoke to people, researched. They're just learning bits of blogs and then training people. And a lot of the advice is terrible because they're not getting it directly from somebody from LinkedIn. They're just hacking and learning on the way. The pros of this are when you get the right advice and the top level of advice that's research, that's experience, that has proof, you can make yourself way better than most people on LinkedIn. And to get success on LinkedIn, it's not about being really good. It's about not being terrible, because everybody's terrible on LinkedIn. So to be the best 1%, it's things like optimizing your profile and then following these steps that I'm about to show you. But one of the main things that LinkedIn did recently is this LinkedIn update. And they did an update where they were trying to say they want you to be more like a content creator, not like a salesperson. And so there's been a transition, if you think of the history of LinkedIn. When they first launched, they were a networking platform. People would go on LinkedIn and send 200-300 messages per day to grow their network, and it went viral. People were messaging all over the world, connecting with people, and that sort of stayed for like 10 years. And I remember one of my first startup jobs was working with a LinkedIn automation tool, a really cool tool called DuckSoup, DUX-SOUP. Still going really, really strong at the moment. And what I learned from that is people needed volume. People wanted to send 500 messages per day. And I just couldn't understand this because I thought, as a business person, yes, I want to be hustling. I want to be pushing and speaking to a lot of people. But at the same time, I need to make sure that I can maintain it. If you compare sales to, say, dating, you're not going to send 500 people a message on Tinder, or maybe you do, but you just send a few people messages because you really like them and want to make something happen. But when it gets to sales, people go a bit crazy, and they go crazy in terms of high volume. So LinkedIn realized this and thought, this is not a good platform. This is not a moderated platform. This is sort of a spammy platform where people go on and just get targeted with everything. So they changed the rules and said, we want people on LinkedIn to be content creators. We want people to give and educate and share posts, share videos, some of the things I'm about to show you. But your sort of ideology of how you look at LinkedIn shouldn't be a platform for sales. It should be a platform for education, and education then converts to sales. And if you have this mindset, these next couple of slides are going to help you. So let's think of what you can actually do on LinkedIn. And the very first one here is sharing posts. So a lot of people get confused about what actually a post is, and they share absolute rubbish to really high quality content. A LinkedIn post is just basically, you'll have used Facebook, you might have done Twitter. It's just an update of whatever you want to do. And you'll see a mix of things. A lot of people will say, I'm proud to be doing something, proud to have a new job, proud to be talking about. That basically means everybody look at me. So it's very hard to do it, but when you share a post where I'm proud to be doing something, you're trying to get people's attention to say, I'm doing something great, come and watch me. I shared a post yesterday, I'm going to be talking in Vietnam in a while, and I said I'm proud to be talking at this, because I want my audience to know I'm going to be there, I'm proud of it, and I want their perceived value of me to keep going up and up. So a post, I'll share some ideas of the type of content to write, but a post is somewhere where all of your network can be alerted to something that you're doing. And this can be an event, this can be your hiring, this can be your raise investment, but you don't want to go too sales focused. A post is not just to talk about you. And if you can get this mindset of this sort of mantra, it'll really, really help you with content. And the idea is this: give more than you get, give more than you get, and you'll receive more than you ever need. And the general idea behind this is that if you're always posting and sharing of just helping people, here's a tip on how to do something, here's information about something, never sign up to use my product. What you'll find is people start coming to you for advice, and your position is that this thought leader, this person who knows what they're doing. So when you start to do posts, try and write about how can I help a stranger to be better at something where it's your expertise, not how can you constantly talk about yourself. And most importantly, if you are to talk a little bit about yourself, failure is much better than success. If you post and say, we're so good, we've raised investment, we're hiring people, we're doing amazing, people will like a little bit, will comment, but it's mostly your team because they're part of the buzz that you're doing. But everybody else is just thinking, I'm sick of those guys, I'm sick of it, I'm jealous, I'm bitter, I'm whatever. Think about failure. Somebody writing, I messed up. So as an example for me, I sent an email campaign to 3,000 people in my newsletter. And they look at me as a marketer, a growth hacker, this really attention to detail, creative marketer. And I said, hi, first name. I got the merge tag wrong. So 3,000 people got an email saying, hi, first name. And I thought, this is a disaster. Like my perceived value, my reputation is going to be ruined because they think I don't know what I'm doing. But instead of doing that, what I did is I wrote a LinkedIn post and I took a screenshot of all the responses that people did. And some very funny of saying things like, if you need help with email marketing, let me know. Or I think there's an error here. Or don't message me again until you learn my name. And instead of me getting really bitter and upset and like depressed, I made a post about this is what I messed up with. And what's amazing is the same people who read my email actually went on the LinkedIn post and commented. And it was full circle. They said things like, I've done this before. Don't worry, this happens. And it made me feel not like I'd made a mistake, but I actually created better content than if I just wrote a post about success. So if you're going to write content, be creative, but sometimes failure is way better than a success. And if it's success, show practical success. Here's a guide on how we did this for you to copy, not look at us, we're doing great. And this is sort of LinkedIn posts. Okay. Next one, I think about images and videos. I think the problem with this is that the TikTok generation are doing so well now of creating content that goes viral, that's exciting, that's funny, and the different functionality you have on things like TikTok really can make your video amazing. LinkedIn video is not so much. So if you're trying to do things, a lot of people will create something on TikTok and then share that TikTok video on LinkedIn. I'm not a huge fan of this because it started sort of cross-marketing, and I like LinkedIn for LinkedIn and TikTok for TikTok. But video works really, really well because it just brings them into life. And types of video, again, are humor can be great, but be very funny or don't bother. Don't be try-hard funny. And if you want to test this, be funny on TikTok first, and when you get interaction, then be funny on LinkedIn, which is a stricter audience. But a lot of videos can just be you introducing yourself, talking at an event, showing people I'm here and I'm helping. It can be interviewing somebody. It can be a screen share of something. Personally, I don't like the types of videos where people are walking, they're in the forest, they're on the way to work, they're in the street, and they're heavy breathing, and they've got the camera like this. I just sort of think that if you've got some value to add, sit down like this, breathe, go slow, and actually help people. Show slides, show data. But I think LinkedIn does have a generation of people that talk a lot of hot air, but don't actually teach you. And they just think by talking it's going to get sales. And maybe it works for some people, but it's not my style. So if you're going to create a video, try and create a video that can actually help somebody or help them to get to know you. Look into the camera, talk about what you're doing, express what's going on. I think some of the best videos I can see are just helping people, being at an event, showing you're active, or things about your team. Team building can be great, all things like that. So when you're doing this, sharing images and videos, try and find something that is high quality. Because it's a little bit like the analogy of, I sometimes see startup websites, and they say, Pat, we're a new startup, check out our business, see what you want to do. And on the bottom of their website, on the footer, it will say, meet our community. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Viber, WhatsApp, Snapchat, hundreds of these channels, and as you click on each one, 1 follower. Posted 3 months ago, 2 followers. And they're just sort of highlighting, look how naive and small we are as a business, and look how bad our content is. Why do you want to do that? So I always say to startups, on your footer, do 1 or 2 links to social media and have it booming, have it bouncing with activity. Same with LinkedIn. If you are going to create images, take a bit of time, use something like canva.com and actually design images that have got some style, that have got some branding. Go a step further and get a brand consultant to actually create a palette for you What colors do you use? What fonts do you use? Because it's so important that how you come across in your content needs to be the brand that you're trying to create. Now, a lot of you might think, oh, I'm too early stage, I don't need to worry about this. And if you're doing things like this, you don't need to sort of panic and think, okay, this is way too much, it's way too expensive. You can go into something like Fiverr.com, and simply by being on that platform, what you can do is just ask for a freelancer to create sort of a brand pack for you, $50 or something. I know it's called Fiverr, but there's add-ons, and $50, $100, something like that. But there are so many ways where you can look professional and really branded without paying over the earth. Good. So I think you've got your profile, you're starting to make posts, sharing images. Now this one's called LinkedIn Live. So on your LinkedIn profile, you'll be a section that will say Creators Mode, and you'll see a button that will say Turn On or Turn Off. And if you turn this on, it changes your LinkedIn profile from a normal profile to a creator's profile. And one of the things this does is that it means people can now follow you instead of just connecting, which is really cool. But not only that, it gives you the ability to do LinkedIn newsletters, LinkedIn audio, add hashtags on your profile, and LinkedIn Live. And LinkedIn Live is amazing. So imagine this session here. This is not on LinkedIn Live, but if it was, all of my network would get like a pop-up message in the top right of the screen saying Patrick is now speaking live. So think of the impact of this. If I've created a talk and I'm going to present it on a webinar to 20, 30 people, I might as well share it live to everybody on LinkedIn as well. So I've got about 20,000 connections. So anytime I want, I can go live, and that's 20,000 people, not live watching, but 20,000 people got access to it. So the ability of that for you to scale as a startup is so powerful that just clicking a button and you're live to everybody is an amazing way to engage. So the other thing is LinkedIn Live is really cost effective. You don't have to pay anything more to have LinkedIn Live. So if you're thinking about webinars and streaming and videos and Zoom and hundreds of dollars of cost, just use LinkedIn Live as free, and there you go. So try and think about some format for LinkedIn Live. And this can be things like a fireside chat, interviewing a client or a case study or a thought lead or something like this. This can be a demo of your product, or this can be a webinar, which is a LinkedIn event. So you have LinkedIn Live and LinkedIn events, and you can do a LinkedIn event that's live or LinkedIn event on Zoom or Google Meets or something like that. So a LinkedIn event and LinkedIn Live are two separate things, but it's a format of how you create them. Good. So I think this one is really a tricky one, share presentations. And what I try and do is, although circular economy word is not applied to marketing, it's about sustainability in businesses, I try and make this sort of circular idea for marketing. And the idea is if you're going to do one thing as a startup, you don't have much time or much resources, so you want to have the biggest impact what you can do. And this sort of circular marketing is, why don't you create presentations for an event, host an event, the event then can be chopped up to be social media posts, and then the presentation can also be slides. So if you make a presentation, you can simply go to LinkedIn, create a post, and you'll see an icon to say upload a document, and you can upload the presentation. And what it will do is it will turn every single page into a slide on LinkedIn. And think of the impact of this. So think of a LinkedIn algorithm, for example. LinkedIn wants to make you sort of viral if your posts are popular and people will really like them. And for LinkedIn to understand why your posts are popular is how much time are people spending on your posts and engaging with them. The more time spent, the more engagement, the more LinkedIn will boost it to the top of everybody's feed. So how do you do something to get people's attention? And it's something that's clickable, that's gamified. And so if you create a post that's like a slideshow, people will click next, 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 stay on it for a long time, and that gets the post really boosted. So think about what content you can have as slides. Think about a presentation for a webinar, your pitch deck, meet the team, events you're going to be talking about, anything like that. And so if you want to keep thinking about sort of slides and presentations, try and find a way where you can find something that's engaging. I know one graphic designer that's amazing at this, and he creates really funny, sarcastic, slapstick sort of presentations. And all he's trying to do is to say he's a graphic designer, so as a graphic designer, how do you know he's good at graphic design? So he creates really great animations that are nothing to do with anything really apart from a funny topic. So I remember, if you look for his name, he's called Dave Officer. And on LinkedIn, he makes some really good slides. So with presentations, it's a really engaging way to get people to stop and to watch. And so some ideas for presentations, again, just to summarize, are things like meet the team and new team members, look at our products, I don't know, experiences you've had, or if you're in a marketing department, for example, these are the templates we use, all sorts of different things. But presentations can really bring to life your content. I've seen one company do this really well, where they create like a thought leadership guide for the year. So once a year, they created like a 40-page slide of all the themes and trends to cover for the year. I've seen a lot of startup founders will do things like their favorite books, their favorite software, their favorite technology. And again, it gets a lot of engagement. And a lot of you will think, well, why would a founder post about their favorite books if their business is about logistics or sales or whatever it might be? And this is this point again, thought leader. You want people to see his brand or her brand as somebody who's really leading the way, really incredible at what they do. And this is why you create content to attract attention, people to start to learn more about you, then ultimately learn about your business. So one of the next ones I want to show you is long-form content. And a lot of people will do this where they'll have a LinkedIn profile, the odd post, and they'll have a blog post with tons and tons of content. Or they'll be writing on something like Medium. And what I always say is whatever content you've got on those channels, Medium or your blog or guest blogs, whatever it is, post on LinkedIn is long-form content as well. So long-form content is just your blog, but on LinkedIn. And it's a bit like a post, but it goes to a separate page that's a full blog, but then people can post underneath and give their reaction and comments and things like that. And again, the idea behind this is that you're educating your audience, but a blog post can be way, way more detailed than a short post, but it keeps people on LinkedIn. And if you think of the psychology of any social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, all these different channels, they don't ever want you to leave. And what I mean by this is that if you're on the channel, all the notifications, all the social buzzes are to get you to stay on LinkedIn and enjoy it. And if you think about this, have you ever tried to just check your phone and you check LinkedIn or you check Instagram, and like 30 minutes later you're thinking, what am I doing looking at cute cats? I wasn't trying to look for that. I was trying to just look for a friend or check my messages. And you go down this sort of path where the social media channels just absorb you and keep you on this. So the opposite of what they want you to do is actually share links to click away from the platform to your blog. LinkedIn don't want you to drive people away from LinkedIn. So your profile is almost sort of rewarded if you're doing internal content where you're sharing posts to a blog within LinkedIn. And what I mean by rewarded is LinkedIn will start to see you as a real content creator, a real healthy account, and more traffic will be driven to you. So when you're sharing content, trying to link internally to LinkedIn like a long-form content compared to sharing externally to something like a blog. And if you are writing long-form content, when you write this for the first time, if you've got your LinkedIn profile switched on to be a content creator, you'll see this option here to say write a newsletter. And this is really, really cool. So the way this works is that when you first create a long-form content and you get this pop-up, would you like to create a newsletter? Click yes, and it lets you create a newsletter, which is basically a banner, profile picture, and a bit of text. And then you can start doing newsletters. And you have one trick, this golden opportunity. The very first post that you make, LinkedIn will send a message to all of your notifications inviting them to subscribe to the newsletter. And what this means is that anytime your network sees this pop up, they subscribe and they're now reading your content. And when you post the newsletters, your audience will see this. So think of the benefit of this. You could have subscribers on your blog, but actually subscribers on LinkedIn, and these could be two totally different places. A lot of people ask me, should the newsletter be by me as an individual or me on behalf of the company? And I think your business company newsletter should be company, product, information, hiring, investment. On LinkedIn, it should be you as a person. In this way, you can be more critical, more emotional, more ambitious, whatever your tone is, and people can get a feel for that. So I would always say a LinkedIn newsletter as an individual, but a general newsletter as a business. Final one, and I would say the most important one on LinkedIn, is events. So my own business is called prospectlabs.co, and it was about 1.5 years ago. I remember COVID was pretty hardcore. I've got 2 small children, and it was driving me crazy, and I thought, I've got to get out of here. So I went to Tenerife with my family, and we had a couple of weeks just working abroad and a chance to clear my head a bit in a new environment. And I remember one day sitting down, and I was writing a blog post called How to Target People Who are Attending Events with You. And the whole idea was you can find people based on if they're at an event and you're at an event, you can register, message each other and get to know each other, and you have something in common. And I was creating this really detailed hack of how to message people, automate it, scrape the groups, or scrape the events, sorry. And then I realized, why am I not creating my own event? And this sort of imposter syndrome just hit me to say, I'm scraping everybody else's event, but I should be doing my own, otherwise what am I scared about? And the thing I was scared about, and like all of you are, is if you think of myself as a coach, a speaker, I get paid and booked to turn up an event and talk. All the hard work of marketing, ticket sales, event, venue, I don't have to do, they just book me to do it. But when you host your own event, you're vulnerable. Maybe nobody turns up. So this was a big risk for me that I thought, I'm not bothered about ego if nobody turns up, but it would just be a bit embarrassing. Who knows? So I hosted my first LinkedIn event, and I think it was called How to Generate Leads on LinkedIn. And my whole mentality, and it was quite a good mantra, is to say low expectations, easily rewarded or easily happy. And so my expectations were, if I get 10 people, that's 10 times as many people as I have if I was doing a demo. Amazing. So I did my first LinkedIn event, and 2,800 people registered. 2,800. And I thought, I've been doing 50 demos a month, killing myself, saying the same thing again and again to people. And I can just do 1 to 2,800 people. And my mind was blown. So what this made me realize is that in my own strategy as a sales startup, a B2B startup, everything was one-to-one emails, one-to-one calls, one-to-one connections. There was nothing one-to-many. And as a startup, you need to be efficient and effective. And to be efficient and effective means you need to do very little of something, but has massive output and massive results. And the idea was LinkedIn events. So what I'm doing here could easily be a LinkedIn event, and I do this very regularly, where I create the slides, I create the event, I advertise for about 2 months, inviting my network, making posts, making comments, sending newsletters, put a banner on my website, email signature about the event. I really push it. And then every 2 months, I get about 1,000 people registering for my events. So my own business is scaled dramatically from doing events, teaching people and getting clients, but also I do this as a service now for startups. So every startup I consult, the first thing I say is in 2 months, we're doing an event. And I have a lot now that are MVP stage, that have already got 300 people registered for the event, and they've got no customers. In every event registration, if you set it up correctly, can also be an email address captured. So as a startup at any stage, events need to be critical around what you do. And so if you put all this strategy together, I hope you can start to realize now that LinkedIn is not just a platform for messaging and selling, it's actually educating via posts, newsletters, LinkedIn Live, and LinkedIn events. The final one that's very, very new is LinkedIn audio. So the difference between LinkedIn audio and LinkedIn events is if this was an event, you can visually see me. LinkedIn audio would be no camera, just listening to me. Very different in terms of when people are just listening, the tone can be a lot more relaxed. I can be a lot more relaxed. And the idea is you can have more of a conversation, more podcast style. So if any of you used Clubhouse in the past, you'll know Clubhouse was a chance for somebody like Elon Musk to be speaking, to having an interview, and thousands just listening and trying to ask questions. So I'm not saying you're the next Elon Musk, but LinkedIn audio can be a way for you to really educate, share news, and just engage with your network. And the very cool thing about LinkedIn audio is if you sort of make a post or make an event and go live, it notifies all of your network just the same like LinkedIn Live. So when you start to put all this together, I think the idea is you start to become like a chef and you have all these ingredients, but how do you put them together to make that beautiful meal? And I think the variable one that you all need to overcome is, can you be experts at these channels? And to be an expert is about being this word autodidact. And basically an autodidact is somebody who's self-taught. Every startup needs to be self-taught. You're not going to go to university and learn all of the growth hacking strategies because they expire every couple of months, every year when LinkedIn and email and trends change, platforms change. So you have to be self-taught and learning all the time. So at the start of this talk, I said, thanks for watching, because you're watching here today because you want to get better and you want to learn. But you need to also have a side of your brain that watches and then applies. Because I have so many people that I say, have you read this book? And they said, yeah, it's great. I was like, so what did you learn from it? And they can't remember a thing. They think it's just you read and you're smart. You read and you apply, and that's where you become smart. So when you're doing things like LinkedIn events, try or LinkedIn posts, LinkedIn videos, be vulnerable just to test. But there's no point testing from just testing out of no context. Test because you've read blogs and you've copied. And if you want to be amazing, just reverse engineer what people do. Or not even reverse engineer. A lot of good blogs out there will just say, follow this exactly. So my approach of learning a new skill is I copy things exactly from the blog. The same wording, the same text, the same search. I copy it and replicate it. And when I know that skill set, I then apply it again with my own content and try. So try and figure out a way to copy some blogs, learn some things, test, then think of a strategy of how to do this. But my general strategy to teach you all would be try and have an event every 2 months, LinkedIn audio maybe every 2 weeks, create content to advertise the event, and then grow your network to introduce them and say, I would like you to invite you to my event. And that sort of cycle will work really well. And then after the event, message these people and say, thanks for attending. If you enjoyed it, I would love to have a call to introduce myself. And that's a really, really good hack for you to get going. Good. So I think in terms of content, the hardest thing that people have is, where do I start? And so many people say, well, I love reading people's content, but I'm not creative myself. I don't know where to go. And the worst thing that I hear that I really find frustrating is people say, LinkedIn algorithm tells me I have to do X. There's no content in the world where it says LinkedIn algorithm is telling you to do something, because LinkedIn algorithm is not public. So anything you've read is made up by another speaker like me saying, I've got this feeling this works. But you're not a slave to LinkedIn algorithm, Facebook algorithm, TikTok algorithm. You need to be creative and post when you've got something to share, and post when you've got something to add value. And then when you get in that routine, your cadence of how often you're posting can then improve a little bit. But what drives me crazy is if you speak to a marketing consultant and they give you a social media plan, Monday motivation, Friday fun, Tuesday demo, Thursday food. It's like you're a slave to rules of what this says. Just because it's Monday, not everybody wants to read a motivational post. So write when you actually have something to share. And my general idea is LinkedIn, from what I've read, wants you to post 3 to 5 times a week. How have you got time to post 3 to 5 times a week? And if you have time, how do you have even knowledgeable to share that's not generic? So my general advice is this. Try and post 4 times a month, once per week, and try and do this format. So once a week, the first post is a LinkedIn poll, and this is going to be in your first week. And a poll is a really engaging way where people love to click and love to vote. And if you think of your business, so like say mine, I do LinkedIn events for startups. So my question would be a little bit of an intro, as you can see here, of what I do and how I'm doing it. And then I want to ask startups, what do you think are the best ways to make sales for B2B? And I don't care what the answer is. If they engage with that, they now engage with me as an audience, and they'll start to learn about me. They might click through to my website. They might register for my event. So trying to do a poll is an incredible hook to get somebody to actually engage with you and learn about you. And polls can really go viral in the hundreds or the thousands of people engaging. So I would say week 1, try and do a poll, and make the poll last for about 2 weeks, so it sort of overlaps into week 2. Week 2, I would then say create some actual content, and I usually do an event post. So if I create an event, in the description of the event that I do of showing people what the event's going to be about, I just copy that description, and then a LinkedIn post, that's where I share it. And the general idea is I've already written the content, I've put time into it, so if it's describing my event on the LinkedIn event, then it can also be a post where I'm describing the event. And all I do under the content is add a link to the event to sign up. So generally week 2 is a bit of content saying I'm running an event, here's what I'll be teaching, would love to see you there. Week 3 is then a bit of a value add. So what I try and do, and I've been repeating this so many times, is education and helping people. So write a bit of content, and this content here that I'm talking about is just trying to say, I see so many people automating everything. And when I speak to a startup and they say, we've got no customers, so we want to know how to set up automated email campaigns, automated LinkedIn campaigns. And I say, at the moment you're a baby, you're crawling, and you've just said to me, how do I drive a rocket? There's a bit of a mismatch. So learn how to crawl, walk, run, drive, train, and then you're ready for rocket. And so the analogy with this is you don't need to automate anything at startup phase until you've found something that works manually. You've got the sentiment of how you write, your tone, how long, how visual it is. And so with my content, I'm just trying to say a couple of lines to say, here's a bit of value, here's a bit of advice. If you want to make this a bit more viral, tag a few people in, either in the post or in the comments, and ask for their opinion. So if you know there's some really, really influential people in LinkedIn on your network, tag them, ask for them, and they'll reply because they want to show that they're alert and they're responsive as well. And that's how you raise awareness also. So final bit of content is just something to say, excited, overwhelmed, build hype. So once I've advertised this event for a month, I've done the week poll, I've done the post about the event, I've done a value add. By week 4, we should start to have between 100 to a couple of hundred people at the event. And you want to build this hype. So I share another post to say, overwhelmed at the numbers that have registered for my event. This is amazing to see so many people. And I want people to see they're sort of missing out on something really cool and special coming here, but I also want to thank the people who've registered so far. So that's the post I do, number 4. And if you put these together, once a week, poll, second week, some sort of post about the event, next one, a bit of value add to help people, maybe share a blog or video, that sort of thing. Then another one, talk about the event and people signing up. Then you can maybe repeat that for another month, and then you've got your event where you could have a good couple of hundred people. So there is so many strategies you can do about content, but I think your variable shouldn't be drowned into a big content plan. Your variable should be, can you start making 1 post a week? And then once you've done that, get in a routine of maybe 2 or 3. And then as you scale, you'll probably have a marketing manager, head of content that'll start to create this for you. But I can't stress enough of how important it is to build your personal persona and brand. And so many startups hide behind their business. And I say to them, so many people buy Tesla because of Elon Musk. People buy Starlink internet because of Elon Musk. So many people buy Apple because of what Steve Jobs was doing in the past. So I think when you're thinking about products, even the world's biggest products still hide behind the founder and the influence that the founder has. So as an early stage startup, you don't really have a product, you just have you as a founder. So you really need to be public and vocal and confident of what you want to share. Good, so I hope you're still with me so far, and I hope you still sort of get this idea of content and what you want to do. The big worry, though, I have with a lot of people is LinkedIn doesn't share the rules of what you can and can't do. And the analogy is this. Imagine you were buying a car today, and you spend a lot of money, invest a lot of time, you say, great, I'm going to drive it. And you say to me, what's the speed limit? I say, unfortunately, I can't tell you, but if you break it, you're going to be arrested. And then I say, okay, so is that the same for everybody? I say, no. Every person who buys a car from me, the speed limit's different for them. That would be very, very weird. That's a bit like LinkedIn. There are no rules of what you can and can't do, but if you break what you can't do of their secret rules, they'll suspend your account. And it's different for every single account. So the problem with this that's really, really awkward is that people will really go for LinkedIn. They'll post, they'll pay for Sales Navigator, which is the upgraded, they'll pay for ads, and then they try to connect with too many people, and they get a message from LinkedIn saying, a warning, you've been suspended. So try to get your head around this. You can be paying for software like LinkedIn. You might have paid for a year in advance, and then LinkedIn have suspended your account that you've actually paid for. So how can a startup software suspend you from using the product that you've paid for? It's totally bizarre, but LinkedIn get away with it. So if you want to be healthy on LinkedIn, and if you want to do the right thing, you need to go slow and steady. And this is because of this. LinkedIn have recently implemented 100 connections per week if, and this is really, really important, if your connection rate is not high, not when. And what I mean by this is, if you're only connecting with people that are cold, you've never met them, you'll probably get about 20 to 30% of people accepting. And LinkedIn will pop up this message to say you're connecting with people that you don't know. Why not try in-mail ads, that sort of thing? A lot of people think LinkedIn have just added a ban that you can only connect with 100 people per week. Not true. I send 200 to 300 messages per day, sometimes very healthily. But my strategy is different. I only connect with people who like my posts, follow my company, visit my profile, or attend my events, which basically means I don't message anybody who doesn't know about me first. And you could all have that approach. But I wouldn't just message somebody out of the blue saying, can I introduce myself? Because there's no bond there. And that's what LinkedIn is saying. Don't message anybody you don't know, or you'll get this restriction. So if you're a salesperson who's used to 300 to 500 connections a day, and now you're sending 100 a week, you're struggling. But this is not a restriction to stop you. This is saying get better, get more high quality, which basically goes back to LinkedIn events. If you can't do mass volume of outreach cold like you used to, you need to create content as a hook to bring them and then connect with them, which is posts, audio, events, and newsletters. So LinkedIn have changed in terms of mass outreach to amazing content, and then maybe mass outreach to the people who like your content. And that's where this fits in. So if you're thinking about restrictions, think about a few of these things. A connection request. I would say don't do any more than 25 per day if you're doing cold, and if you have to do cold. And some of you are looking to break into new markets, you're looking to find new people, you're looking to find investors. You do have to just message new people to build your network. So if so, about 25 per day. In-mail campaigns. If you see anybody on LinkedIn with a gold profile, these are not paid in-mails, but if they have a gold profile, it means their profile is open. And what open means is that you can message these people directly in their inbox without having to connect with them. And I would say do about 30 to 50 a day if you want to. Messenger. So if you are part of a LinkedIn group, or if you're registered for a LinkedIn event, you can message any of these people in the group or the event without needing to connect with these. And again, about 100 per day maximum you can do. And then this one's CSV import campaign. Bit hard to explain now, but generally what LinkedIn lets you do is if you go to My Network, you can sync with a Gmail account. And there are different tricks and hacks you can do out there to sync your Gmail account and bulk connect with people. Good. So when we're thinking about content, we've got sort of the activity, the proactive, and then you have content. The only rule that LinkedIn shares about activity online is event invites. You host a LinkedIn event, there's a button to click invite, and you can invite 100 people per day, or a little bit more than, I think it's about 1,200 in a week, so a little bit more than 100 per day. But what this means is the only thing you could do at scale and healthily is LinkedIn events and inviting people. So that should be number one of your strategy, not mass outreach, because LinkedIn are publicly saying, send 100 invites per day, no problem. So I've got 20,000 connections. So if I send 100 invites per day for a couple of months, I can invite 20,000 people to an event. Amazing way to me to boost my sales, awareness, sell a course, sell a book, find investment, whatever it may be. Content, try and make one post per week and keep it up. And then these final ones, SSI score. So if you Google LinkedIn SSI score, you'll get these results, and it's a sort of a gamified way of LinkedIn to say how they perceive you. It's complete vanity metrics. It holds no currency. It's a bit like a Facebook like. You can't do anything with it. But why it's good is LinkedIn at least give you a score to say how balanced you are at all these things I've showed you today and what you can get better at. Now, there's no real correlation between a high SSI score and anything. So you can have this phrase analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, sorry, where when you're looking at data so much, you lose the sort of big picture of what you're trying to achieve. So what I sort of tend to do is say, have a look at this as a bit of a game and once a month check, but don't be sort of drowned in it. And the final thing is pending connections. If you imagine on LinkedIn, you're connecting with so many people, it becomes a bit of like a traffic jam where all the people who don't accept get blocked out. So if you can go to My Network and go to Send Connections, you can actually see all the people that are pending. Anybody more than 3 weeks old, click Withdraw. And in about 6 weeks' time, you can try again if you want to. But the idea behind this is that if you have more than maybe 200 to 300 pending connections, LinkedIn sometimes flag your account and say you can't send any more until you withdraw these. So your LinkedIn account and health is really, really important. If you do want to run a LinkedIn health check, there's a few things you can do. Pending connections, as I've just seen, less than 200 to 300. Go to your support tickets on LinkedIn and just check, is there anything outstanding? So a lot of people message LinkedIn support to say, can I check some health? LinkedIn replies and they forget. And you don't want to have any open tickets on LinkedIn. Basically, all the activity you do on LinkedIn looking at you or checking your profile. So no outstanding tickets. In terms of number of connections, 30,000 connections, but unlimited followers. So it's much better to be a content creator where you can have hundreds of thousands of followers, but as your network, maybe only 30,000. Inbox, the amount of startups I will work with, and I'll say, okay, let's do some training, share your screen. 1,000 unread emails, 300 LinkedIn messages. And I sort of think, how are you trying to make sales when if someone replies, you're never even going to see it? So 0 inbox for LinkedIn and email. Now this is 0 inbox, but it's not 0 inbox mentality that 11 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock in the morning, weekends you're replying. No, life balance is key. But you need to get a routine where you keep your inbox down to 0 and reply to people. And it might be that you spend a full day just purging your inbox, getting on top, and then slow and steady on top of that. But any of this you do is going to generate more inquiries and more people want to speak to you, so please be available to speak to them back. Final things I want to cover today are LinkedIn templates. And the reason by this is I've showed you a lot of theory, a lot of content. But if I share all of this, what are you actually going to do next? And this is what I want to show you. I want you to find people that are at events similar to you, groups similar to you, your target audience that you want to speak to, and use messages like this. And the whole framework like this is these messages are not perfect. I haven't written these. I've worked with a startup who wrote these. Good friend who's from Kazakhstan, so his English was good but not perfect, but he wrote like he spoke. And the whole idea behind these posts are the type of content is asking for feedback. And what I mean by this is that when you're asking for feedback, it changes the power struggle from you trying to sell to placing on the person to say, you're an expert, can I get your feedback and can you help me? And from MVP to scale up to enterprise, sales has to be about sort of getting feedback. So when you're asking for feedback, try and speak to people and say, we've never met, but I'm looking for experts, would love to learn from you. Thanks for connecting. As an expert, I would love to get some smart advice, what we're building, can we have a call? And then if they don't reply, sorry to chase you up, just want to know if we can get a call, really value your opinion. And the idea behind all of these messages is you're trying to say to people, can you help me? Can I get your feedback? Can we have a call? So your goal is not to sell to somebody. Your goal is to educate somebody, then get them to love you, love your brand, love where you're going, and then they want to buy from you. And that's a different power dynamic. And the final thing on this is startup sales has LTV, lifetime value, not 1 month value. So lifetime value means building a lifetime relationship. And if you're going to do that, you need to build it on a foundation of trust, getting feedback, getting to know somebody, not just bullying them into sale. So I think with all of this here today, I think what's really, really important is trying to summarize what we've tried to achieve. And the whole thing about this is, can I teach you that LinkedIn is a platform where you can educate people? LinkedIn is a platform where you can showcase your charisma, your charm, your ambition, your mission, your product. But it's a platform with 800 million plus people that are waiting to speak to you. So if you're just doing cold emailing or cold calling, the thing that you're missing is it's so easy to just find the people that you want to speak to. So I think in terms of this, try and find a way of being proactive on LinkedIn, trying to create content to educate people. And if you take anything from this, create a LinkedIn event, test it, and you'll be amazed about your network that wants to learn from you. So I hope you found this helpful for today. My name's Patrick Collins. My website's called prospectlabs.co, and we're a startup growth hacking agency. So we help startups that are trying to get to their first 10K revenue to really, really grow or to scale from 10 to 50. And email me, patrick@prospectlabs.co if you want to. If you don't have any asks, just say thanks, and it makes me feel good. But actually ask for practical advice and support, and I'm always happy to help. So I hope you really enjoyed today. It's been a real pleasure working with you, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.